Hello, my name's Siobhan, and welcome to this video in which we're going to be having a look at how to send email with AppScript. So, as with other times, we're going to start in our folder by making a spreadsheet. So I'm going to start with a spreadsheet like so, and I'm going to rename it to sending email. We don't need anything in this spreadsheet. We're going to be entirely working in the script editor because we're just going to be looking at a little example of how to send some email, and I'll show you an example of doing it with some data from a spreadsheet, but we won't write that together. So I'm going to click on extensions and AppScript to open up the script editor, and I'm going to change my project to also be sending email, hit rename, and then I'm going to rename my code file and my function as well, and I'm going to call those ones send email with a capital E for email, like so. So it's just like we've been doing before, send email, hit enter a couple of times, and hit save. So now we are ready to go. Lovely. So when we're sending email in AppScript, we're going to use something called the Mail app. Now, the Mail app is different to the Gmail app, confusingly. There are two different apps that sound like they do the same thing, but they actually don't. The Gmail app allows you to access things to do with Gmail, so stuff to do with someone's inbox and stuff that you can see when you go to the Gmail interface. The Mail app solely allows you to send email and check your mail quota. So that's the one we're going to be using, the Mail app. We're going to be working with sending emails. But to use the Mail app and the send email function within it, we need to give it some information. The things that you need for an email, so a recipient, a subject, and a body. And we're going to store them in variables. So let's start inside our code by writing var, and then we're going to create a variable called email address with a capital A for address. Then we're going to do a space equals, and we're going to put in an email address inside some quotes. So put in an email address you have access to. Your own email address doesn't have to be a Google one, just needs to be an email address that you have access to because you need to check it works. So I'm going to put in an email address that I have access to. And then I'm going to end the line with a semicolon. Make sure the email address is between sets of quotes because we're looking for a string. Now I'm going to hit enter and enter again. And I'm going to make a subject for my email. So like var subject equals, needs to do some quotes. And I'm going to call this one essential apps script test. And then I'm going to end the line with a semicolon as well. And finally, we need to give it a body. Now this one's going to get slightly more complicated because we're going to put in some line breaks. So I'm like var body space equals, I'm going to do some quotes, and I'm going to start with just a hello, maybe an exclamation mark, because I'm very excited to send this test email. But I can't just hit enter if I want line breaks. It won't read them. I need to tell it specifically to put in line breaks. So what we're going to do is I'm going to concatenate it together. I could just put it inside the same string, but it tends to be nicer and easier to read if I kind of put them together as building blocks. So I'm going to do outside my string, I'm going to do a space and a plus sign, then another space, then some more quotes, and I'm going to do \n \n. Because what that means is two new lines. So / is what's called the escape character. So that tells AppScript this is actually a command. It's not actually some text. And n means new line. The reason I've done two is so it goes to a new line and then another new line, leaving a blank line, because I tend to think that emails are easier to read if you've got that blank space in them. Then I'm going to end my line with a semicolon, like so. Now, I want more lines, but I'm not going to keep plussing, using the plus symbol and concatenating them further along this line, because it's going to get long and very hard to read, especially if my email had a fair bit of text in it. So instead, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to do something clever. I'm going to write body space plus equals space. And what that means is take the value of body that we already have, add this content to it, and make that answer the new value of body. So essentially, it's going to keep the hello and the \n, but anything we add is going to be added to that value, and then that's going to be the new value of body, our variable. So I'm going to put some quotes, and I'm going to write this is an example email, like so. And then I'm going to go outside my quotes, do another plus, I'm going to do another set of quotes, and another \n, because then I can do a little sign off at the end. And then I'm going to put a semicolon at the end of my line. I'm going to hit enter, I'm going to do another body space plus equals space. I'm just going to write thank you. Like so, you could sign off your name if you want, whatever you fancy. Doesn't matter what text you write here. Then I'm going to end the line with a semicolon. And now we've got all the information we need to send an email. So I'm going to hit enter and enter again. Just a little comment, 2 forward slashes that says send email. I do recommend whenever you're going to send an email in AppScript, you put a comment that says send email, because it's really good to know when you go back and look at code where the email's being sent, because that can impact if someone has received an email or not, if the script breaks. So on a new line, I'm going to write mail app. It auto suggests it, capital M, capital A, because it's a feature in AppScript. So I could just let it auto correct like that. And then I'm going to do dot, and you can see it's only got 2 commands built into it, send email and get remaining daily quota. We want send email. So I'm going to write send email, open some brackets. Now the first suggestion just says I need a message that's an object. We're ignoring that one. We're going to go down to number 2, which shows us we need a recipient, a string, and a body. And a recipient, a subject, and a body, and they all need to be strings. Easy to get confused. So I'm going to put in the names of my variables that have that information in. So I'm going to write email address, make sure I type it correctly, comma, space, subject, comma, space, body. I'm going to end the line with a semicolon. And I'm going to hit save. So now I can run my code to see if it works. It's done. So I'm going to hit run. It is going to ask me to authorize this code because Mail App is doing something with my account. It's going to say it can send email as you, so it can impersonate you if it really wanted, but you've written it, so you're not even impersonating yourself. It's fine. And then we're going to see the execution log. It's just going to say that it started and completed. We didn't put any loggers in. There's nothing that's going to appear here. The way to check if it works is to go to your email inbox in a moment and see if the email is there. If the email is not there, double check your code, make sure it matches. You can always try a different email address if you want it's the email address, and have a go. Let's quickly then have a quick look now, once you've got that working, at an example of putting that into our project 4 from the last section. So here's just the response sheet to the form we used for project 4. I'm going to go to extensions and AppScript to have a look at what we might do to put that code into a project. So we can see we've got an on-form submit, we're getting the values, we've stored them in variables, we've made a new document, we've put the URL into our spreadsheet. And at the very end, once all that's done, we're going to send an email to let somebody know that we're going to be in touch with them about their submission, that we've received it, we've sort of administered it, and we're going to be in touch with them. So what I got here, I've made a subject, I've made a body and added some more bits with \n, so it's got some new lines, and I've used send email using the email address we got above. So we got one from our form value, and that's the one I'm using. So that's a really useful thing here, is that we can use Mail App when we've got data, as long as some of that data is an email address, whether it's from a form submission or data you have in a spreadsheet, I can then send the email using that. So I've done the same thing, I just already had the email address stored in a variable. So it's where it's useful to make sure you pulled out that email address as a separate variable first, and make sure that you have it stored as a variable in the same function that you want to send the email to, even that means you need to send it to the right function. I recommend putting the sending email bit at the end of the code once everything else has happened, so that if it breaks, you don't send the email preemptively. That can be useful, but there might be a certain point in the process where an email does need to go out. So that's an example of what it might look like in practice. Happy emailing.